Thank you, colleagues. Can I remind members that social distancing measures are in place in the Chamber and across the Scottish Parliament, and can I ask members please to take care to observe these measures over the course of this afternoon's business, including when entering and leaving the Chamber. The next item of business is a statement by Ivan McKee on the mobilisation of the Scottish manufacturing base and sourcing to support NHS Scotland. The Minister will take questions at the end of his statement, and so there should be no interventions or interruptions. I call the Minister, Ivan McKee.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The COVID-19 public health crisis has raised significant challenges in meeting the rapidly increasing needs of our health and social care services. The response of the Government, our agencies and partners and the Scottish business community has been crucial in overcoming these challenges. This afternoon I will summarise the Government's supply chain programme, the collaborative actions we have taken to address potential shortages and the challenges and opportunities that remain. By quoting examples of Scottish businesses, I will illustrate the tremendous progress made in only a matter of weeks in meeting demand, building resilience, reshoring activity and enhancing self-sufficiency. While we will continue to source from global supply chains, our dependence on them, our exposure to global pressures and price volatility for key product lines has greatly decreased. I hope that outcome commands the support of all parties. We can, of course, go further. My particular commitment as Innovation Minister is to support the NHS and Scottish businesses to harness the power of innovation to meet future health service needs and to enhance economic recovery. And I will say more about that theme towards the end of my statement. The COVID-19 pandemic is one of the greatest public health challenges our society has ever faced. The sheer scale of it risked overwhelming NHS capacity and the ability of supply chains to respond. As the severity and spread of the pandemic became clear, three things were quickly apparent. Global demand for PPE and equipment had risen exponentially, sources of supply had dried up, and trade barriers had increased. Usual supply chains faltered as movement restrictions and lockdowns were imposed in China and other major centres of production. At the same time, the capacity to move international freight by air dwindled rapidly as passenger flights were curtailed and planes grounded. In Scotland, NHS forecasts indicated that we would need to source huge quantities of PPE, medical equipment like ventilators, hand sanitizer and swab tests, merely to keep pace with surging demand. Faced with this scenario, we chose a strategy designed to deliver results, a considered and selective approach. We have directed all our efforts and resources into finding new, dependable sources of supply, both internationally and at home. And it's useful, Presiding Officer, at this point to consider some of the things we chose not to do. We did not rush into accepting unverified offers when faced with warnings that supplies would soon be gone or prices hiked. We have not dealt through layers of brokers or taken offers yielding small quantities. And most importantly, we have not cut corners or let our quality standards slip. Instead, our choice was to assemble a multi-agency team to identify rapidly those offers of support which could supply us with high volumes of approved products in the fastest possible times. And in parallel with that, to work with businesses to grow Scottish capacity to produce key products and build resilience. The procurement and technical expertise of the NHS, the Scottish Government, Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Development International and the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland have been harnessed to buy products of the right standard, in the right quantities and in the right timescales. This multi-agency team has worked tirelessly to support the NHS, and I want to place on record my sincere thanks to them all. Their efforts are well reflected in the ongoing achievements of the programme. I would like to give some examples of where we have built resilience and are moving towards self-sufficiency, including several new domestic supply chains established in record time. A supply chain for hand sanitizer has been created from scratch. Production at Callachem in Grangemouth, using spirit from Scottish distillers and Scottish bottling capacity, can satisfy all current health and social care needs in Scotland. A supply chain has been established to produce non-sterile gowns for the NHS. Donenlow and Forfar are producing enough base fabric to make 1 million non-sterile gowns for NHS Scotland. This will satisfy over half of our NHS and social care requirements in Scotland. Keela and Glenrothes and Transcal and Endura in Livingston are amongst the firms converting that raw material into gowns and shipping them to our frontline services. Across a range of other product lines, Scottish businesses are benefiting from a stream of NHS orders and improving their self-sufficiency. Berry, BPI and Greenock and Dumfries will produce 2 million aprons per week from the start of June as part of an order for over 100 million aprons from the NHS Scotland. This order alone meets around 40% of our NHS and social care demand. The picture for visors is even better. Alpha Solway of Annan, who I heard on GMS this morning, are producing 1.1 million visors for the NHS at a rate of 20,000 per day, more than meeting current Scottish demand. And I can announce that we have successfully created manufacturing supply chain for masks utilising product from Donnan Law and the manufacturing expertise of Alpha Solway. Backed by a significant NHS order and support from Scottish Enterprise, Alpha Solway are about to commence manufacturing FFP3 face masks, the type worn in intensive care with newly installed machinery. The company has more machinery arriving next month to increase their production capacity still further. Once fully up and running, this new plant will be capable of producing 5 million masks per week, well above NHS Scotland's demand, so creating export potential. And what's more, the company is expecting to create at least 50 more jobs in total in the coming months in Dumfries and Annan, with 30 of those already in post. This adds to the recent announcement by Honeywell at Newhouse that they will manufacture 70 million masks for use across the UK. Scotland's production of PPE is not only building self-sufficiency, but also creating jobs and opening export opportunities. Beyond sanitiser and PPE, many businesses are repurposing their facilities to support NHS needs. For example, Scottish Enterprise is supporting 2 manufacturers as part of work led by Babcock International to design and produce new ventilators under the UK Ventilator Challenge initiative. Plexus and Raytheon will both be supporting the production of ventilators from their Kelso, Livingston and Glenrothes manufacturing facilities. These many achievements are, of course, just a snapshot of the supply chain programme and the wider business response to COVID-19. All members of this Parliament will know of companies large and small in their areas who have put their shoulder to the wheel, and we will continue to highlight more examples of this work as we grow our domestic capabilities. Of course, while we were building our domestic supply chains, there was an urgent need to secure huge volumes of PPE from international sources to meet the immediate demands of our frontline services. In recent weeks, and despite the international difficulties I mentioned earlier, we have brought in 7 charter flights delivering over 64 million face masks, 130,000 reusable gowns, 120,000 test kits and 1,300 infusion pumps, with more to follow. Much needed ventilators and oxygen concentrators have arrived from the US and China, and in a spirit of mutual aid and assistance, our flights have carried cargoes for the NHS in Wales, plus donations free of charge for Scottish charities. Our international sourcing has been assisted greatly by our Scottish Government and Scottish Development International teams based in the overseas hubs. Their local knowledge, connections and expertise have been invaluable in qualifying international companies, checking certificates and export licences and making factory visits. And I take this opportunity to thank them on behalf of us for all their work. As the pandemic and our response to it evolves, other opportunities to build resilience present themselves. Through our test supply chain group and engagement with the Life Science Industry Leadership Group, work has started to examine the role Scotland can play in the manufacture of vaccines when these become available. We can also start to think about emerging themes and lessons. Our future systems must be more resilient, adaptable and sustainable. COVID-19 has both exposed vulnerabilities and highlighted core strengths. And one very positive side effect is an upsurge in innovative thinking. New ways of remote working, distance monitoring devices, new technologies for decontamination, enhanced protection from airborne virus particles, automation, circular economy and service redesign. The National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland has worked to respond to many hundreds of companies who offer to help with manufacturing for the NHS, speaking to more than 400 who offered support and continue to work on many of these alongside its own research and engineering community who have generated many additional proposals. I want Scotland to be the inventor and producer of the innovations that shape our future and not just the consumer of them. The words of our First Minister in the era before COVID-19, but never more relevant than now as we work our way through the current crisis. Thankfully, as the peak of the pandemic subsides, we can see that actions taken by this government, the NHS and, very importantly, by the public and businesses have helped to curb the worst potential impacts and boosted our capacity to respond. A huge amount has been achieved at unprecedented speed to source critical medical supplies and equipment. I congratulate Scottish businesses and public services on their fantastic efforts, rising to the occasion and supporting the national effort. I have painted a picture of the future, how we are supporting innovation, building self-sufficiency and putting Scotland at the forefront of supply chain resilience now and in the future. Thank you.